At first glance, Wyoming feels empty. Wide plains stretch toward distant horizons. Mountains rise slowly, without urgency. Towns appear scattered and quiet, separated by long distances of open land. The sky dominates everything, creating a sense of calm and permanence. Here, it feels as if nothing has changed for a very long time. This impression is deceptive. Wyoming's stillness hides one of the most dynamic landscapes on Earth. Beneath its open valleys and forests, the ground is far from stable. Forces deep below the surface continue to move, shift, and build pressure. The land does not announce this activity, it simply carries it. Wyoming is one of the least populated regions in the United States, and that absence of human presence amplifies the illusion of stability. Without dense cities or constant movement, the landscape appears settled and timeless. But geological time moves differently here. What seems motionless on a human scale is actively transforming across thousands and millions of years. This region sits atop powerful systems that shape continents. Heat rises from deep within the Earth. Water circulates through fractured rock. Pressure accumulates and releases in subtle ways, lifting land by centimeters and altering drainage patterns. These changes are slow, but they are constant. Wyoming exists within them, not outside them. The land itself reveals clues to this hidden activity. Rivers cut deeply into plateaus. Colors stain rock faces, marking chemical reactions driven by heat and water. Steam rises quietly from the ground in places where the surface thins. These signs do not overwhelm the landscape. They blend into it, easy to overlook unless one knows where to look. Life adapted to this environment long before humans arrived. Plants, animals, and entire ecosystems learn to exist within cycles shaped by fire, ice, and shifting ground. Survival here depends on flexibility rather than control. Stability is temporary, adaptation is permanent. Human presence in Wyoming has always been light by comparison. Settlements formed where resources allowed, but vast areas remained untouched. Even today, large portions of the state feel unchanged, reinforcing the sense that this is a land beyond disturbance. Yet this quietness exists precisely because the land itself sets firm limits. Wyoming does not overwhelm with obvious drama. It does not demand attention through constant spectacle. Its power is contained, layered beneath a surface that appears calm and indifferent. This contrast defines the region. Silence does not mean safety. Stillness does not mean rest. To understand Wyoming, one must look past what is visible. The real story is not written on the surface, but beneath it. This is a place shaped by processes far larger than human time, where the ground itself remains active, patient, and unfinished. Beneath Wyoming's calm appearance lies one of the most powerful geological systems on the planet. Hidden below forests, rivers, and open valleys is the Yellowstone supervolcano. Unlike the steep cones often associated with volcanoes, this system remains largely invisible. Its presence is defined not by shape, but by scale and heat. A supervolcano is not a single mountain or crater. It is a vast underground reservoir of molten rock stretching across tens of kilometers. In Yellowstone, this chamber sits beneath the surface, slowly transferring heat upward. The land above responds quietly, rising, sinking, and reshaping itself in subtle ways. The last major eruption occurred hundreds of thousands of years ago, long before humans documented the land. That event altered climates far beyond the region, covering enormous areas with ash and debris. Today, the system remains active, not as a looming catastrophe, but as a continuing process. Heat from deep within the Earth drives constant circulation. Water seeps downward through fractures, absorbs thermal energy, and returns to the surface in altered form. Pressure builds and releases gradually, producing thousands of small earthquakes each year. Most go unnoticed, yet they reveal a system that never fully rests. The surface of Yellowstone responds to these forces in slow motion. Entire sections of land lift and fall over decades. Lakes subtly change shape. River paths adjust. These movements are measured not in dramatic moments, but in accumulated change. The landscape records this activity patiently. This hidden activity explains why Yellowstone feels both stable and unsettled at the same time. The land functions normally, yet subtle signals continuously reveal what lies beneath. Stability here is not the absence of motion, but the result of constant adjustment occurring quietly below the surface. Despite its power, the supervolcano does not dominate the region visually. Forests grow uninterrupted above it. Wildlife migrates across its surface. Snow settles and melts with the seasons. Life continues as if the ground below were stable. This coexistence defines Yellowstone's character. Scientists monitor the system closely, tracking heat flow, seismic signals, and ground deformation. These observations do not predict sudden disaster. Instead, they reveal a complex balance between energy release and containment. The system expels pressure constantly, reducing the need for violent release. Yellowstone's significance lies not in fear, but in perspective. It demonstrates how immense forces can exist without immediate drama. Power does not always announce itself. Often, it works quietly, shaping landscapes over time rather than moments. In Wyoming, the presence of a supervolcano challenges assumptions about stability. The land appears calm, yet exists atop a structure capable of reshaping continents. Understanding this contradiction is essential. Yellowstone is not a threat looming above the region. It is a reminder that the earth beneath Wyoming remains active, complex, and unfinished. Yellowstone's geyser basins reveal the surface expression of this underground system, where heat, water, and pressure interact directly beneath some of the park's most active landscapes. What makes Yellowstone extraordinary is not any single feature on the surface, but the vast geothermal network operating beneath it. Heat from the supervolcano fuels a complex system of water circulation, pressure buildup, and release that spans much of the region. This invisible engine connects lakes, rivers, springs, and geysers into one continuous process. Rain and snowmelt seep deep into the ground through cracks and porous rock. As the water descends, it encounters rising heat from the magma chamber below. Temperatures increase rapidly, water expands, absorbs minerals, and begins its return toward the surface. The path it follows determines how that energy is released. In some places, pressure builds steadily until it forces water upward in sudden bursts. Geysers erupt, releasing steam and boiling water into the air. In others, heat escapes more gently. Hot springs form, allowing warm, mineral-rich water to flow continuously. Fumaroles release steam directly, marking areas where the Earth's crust thins. One of the most recognizable expressions of this system is Old Faithful, whose regular eruptions illustrate how pressure and water release can remain predictable within an otherwise dynamic landscape. These features are not isolated attractions. They are surface expressions of a single system. Changes in one area can influence activity elsewhere. A shift in underground pressure may quiet a geyser while activating another. Entire basins evolve over time, with features appearing, fading, or relocating as pathways change. Water plays a central role in regulating this system. It acts as both conductor and moderator, transferring heat while preventing uncontrolled release. Without water, pressure would accumulate differently, and the landscape above would look dramatically altered. The balance between heat and water allows Yellowstone to release energy gradually rather than explosively. This geothermal activity reshapes the land chemically as well as physically. Minerals dissolved in hot water settle on the surface, staining rocks in vivid colors. These patterns record temperature, acidity, and microbial life. What appears decorative is, in fact, scientific evidence of ongoing interaction between heat, water, and living organisms. The network operates continuously, regardless of season. Snow may blanket the ground, rivers may freeze, and forests may appear dormant, yet beneath the surface, circulation continues uninterrupted. Heat rises, water moves, pressure adjusts. Yellowstone never truly sleeps. Understanding this hidden system changes how the landscape is perceived. What seems calm becomes active. What appears permanent becomes temporary. The ground itself behaves less like a solid foundation and more like a flexible membrane responding to forces below. In Wyoming, the geothermal network is a reminder that landscapes are not static backdrops. They are dynamic systems shaped by invisible motion. Yellowstone's surface beauty is inseparable from the restless energy beneath it, quietly sustaining a process that has been unfolding for thousands of years. Across Yellowstone Lake, the Firehole River, and nearby basins, water carries geothermal energy to the surface, shaping visible features that define the park's most recognizable landscapes. The interaction between heat and water does not remain hidden beneath Yellowstone. It reaches the surface and reshapes the landscape in visible, measurable ways. Rivers, lakes, basins, and mineral fields all reflect the slow but persistent influence of geothermal energy rising from below. Yellowstone Lake appears calm at first glance, its broad surface mirroring surrounding mountains and sky. Beneath the water, however, hydrothermal vents release heat and gases directly into the lake. Warm currents circulate silently, altering chemistry and temperature. Even here, far from erupting geysers, the volcanic system remains present. Nearby, river systems carry geothermal influence across the land. The Firehole River flows warm year-round, shaped by hot springs and runoff from geyser basins. Steam drifts above its surface during winter, creating an unusual contrast between flowing water and frozen surroundings. This warmth affects aquatic life and reshapes seasonal patterns downstream. At places like the Grand Prismatic Spring, heat, water, and chemistry combine into striking surface expressions. Mineral-rich water rises from depth, cools as it spreads outward, and deposits layers of color. These patterns reflect temperature gradients and microbial communities adapted to extreme conditions. The result is not decoration, but a living record of thermal balance. West Thumb Geyser Basin offers another perspective. Here, geothermal activity meets the edge of Yellowstone Lake itself. Hot springs bubble beside cold water, revealing how thin the boundary can be between surface calm and subsurface heat. The basin demonstrates how closely linked the entire system remains. Over time, these processes reshape drainage patterns. Channels shift, shorelines change. Thermal features migrate as underground pathways open and close. The landscape does not freeze into a final form. It continues adjusting in response to pressure, water availability, and heat flow. Over decades and centuries, these surface changes accumulate into lasting transformation. What begins as subtle thermal influence gradually alters entire landscapes. water redirects, mineral layers build, and new features emerge while others fade, creating a terrain defined by continuous adjustment rather than permanence or final form. This constant reshaping influences how life occupies the region. Plants grow where temperature allows. Microorganisms colonize surfaces too hostile for most species. Animals learn to navigate areas of warmth and instability. The environment selects for adaptation rather than permanence. In Wyoming, water does more than carve valleys or fill lakes. It acts as a visible extension of deep geological processes. Through rivers, springs, and basins, the hidden system below shapes the surface above, reminding us that what seems solid is always in motion. Not all geothermal change announces itself through eruption or steam. In some places, heat reshapes the land so slowly that motion becomes almost invisible. Mammoth Hot Springs is one of these locations where transformation occurs through accumulation rather than release. Here, hot water rises from deep underground carrying dissolved limestone. As the water reaches the surface, it cools and releases carbon dioxide, causing calcium carbonate to settle and harden. Layer by layer, this process builds terraces, channels, and walls that appear sculpted yet remain unfinished. Unlike geyser basins that shift unpredictably, Mammoth Hot Springs follows a slower rhythm. Growth is continuous, but not fixed. Water changes course. New terraces form, older structures dry out and erode. The landscape evolves quietly, guided by chemistry and gravity rather than pressure and explosion. The result is a terrain that feels both ancient and temporary. Terraces appear solid, yet their lifespan may be measured in decades rather than millennia. This challenges common assumptions about geological permanence. Even stone here is transient, shaped by water that never follows the same path for long. Mammoth Hot Springs also reveals how Yellowstone releases energy without violence. Heat escapes steadily, carried upward by water, and dispersed across wide surfaces. Pressure does not build to a breaking point. Instead, it dissipates through constant flow. This balance reduces the need for dramatic release. Over long periods, this slow release influences the surrounding region far beyond the terraces themselves. Mineral deposits alter soil composition, water temperature affects nearby ecosystems, and subtle chemical changes spread outward, connecting Mammoth Hot Springs to the wider Yellowstone system rather than isolating it as a single feature. The site provides a clear example of how geological systems manage energy over time. Rather than focusing on rare, catastrophic events, Mammoth illustrates the power of incremental change. Small adjustments, repeated endlessly, reshape landscapes just as effectively as sudden upheaval. For scientists, Mammoth Hot Springs offers insight into mineral deposition, microbial adaptation, and long-term landscape evolution. For the land itself, it represents a stable outlet for deep heat. The process is slow, but it is relentless. Within Wyoming's broader geological system, Mammoth Hot Springs stands as evidence that time does not always announce itself through destruction. Sometimes it works quietly, building forms that appear solid while remaining subject to constant change beneath flowing water. While heat reshapes Yellowstone from below, water defines it from above. The Yellowstone River begins high in the plateau, gathering snowmelt and runoff before carving one of the most dramatic landscapes in the region. Over time, moving water becomes an instrument of exposure, revealing layers shaped by fire and heat long before the river arrived. As the river flows north, it accelerates through zones weakened by geothermal alteration. Rock altered by heat erodes more easily, allowing water to cut deeper and faster. This interaction between ancient volcanic processes and modern erosion gives rise to the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone, a feature formed not by sudden collapse, but by persistent flow. The canyon's walls display vivid colors that shift with light and season. Yellows, reds, and whites reflect mineral content altered by heat and chemical reactions. These tones are not surface decoration. They are evidence of long interaction between water, volcanic rock, and time. The canyon functions as a cross-section through Yellowstone's history. Waterfalls mark transitions in elevation where erosion accelerates. The upper and lower falls drop dramatically, amplifying the sound and force of moving water. These features continue to migrate upstream, slowly extending the canyon's reach. The river's influence extends beyond the canyon. Downstream, it supports wetlands, floodplains, and migration corridors for wildlife. Seasonal flooding redistributes nutrients and reshapes banks. Ice forms in winter, breaks in spring, and alters flow patterns year after year. The river responds continuously to climate, terrain, and time. What distinguishes the Yellowstone River is not its size, but its persistence. It does not overwhelm the land in a single moment. Instead, it applies steady pressure over immense spans of time. This persistence reveals how landscapes evolve through repetition rather than force. Erosion here works in partnership with geology. Without volcanic heat-weakening rock, the canyon would look different. Without water, the structure would remain hidden beneath the surface. Together, these elements expose the system beneath Wyoming's surface. The river also demonstrates how surface processes remain connected to deeper forces. Heat determines rock composition. Rock determines erosion speed. Erosion determines form. Each step depends on the previous one, linking deep Earth activity to visible terrain. In Wyoming, water is not simply a feature of the landscape, it is an active agent of revelation. Through rivers and canyons, hidden processes become visible. The land opens itself gradually, allowing time and movement to shape forms that appear dramatic, yet result from steady, patient work. Despite the powerful geological forces shaping Wyoming, life has learned not only to survive here, but to organize itself around instability. Yellowstone supports one of the most complete and intact ecosystems remaining in North America, precisely because the land resists permanent control. The foundation of this system is movement. Large animals migrate seasonally across valleys, plateaus, and river corridors. Bison travel long distances in search of forage, navigating snow, rivers, and thermal ground. Their paths are not random. They follow patterns shaped by terrain, weather, and long memory embedded within the herd. Predators play an equally important role. Wolves, once removed from the region, were reintroduced after decades of absence. Their return altered behavior across the ecosystem. Grazing patterns shifted. Vegetation recovered in some areas. Riverbanks stabilized where plant growth returned. These changes revealed how interconnected life here remains. Lamar Valley remains one of the clearest examples of this balance, where predator and prey interactions unfold across open terrain with minimal human interference. Smaller species respond to the same forces. Birds adjust nesting patterns based on seasonal flooding. Amphibians depend on thermal water that remains unfrozen in winter. Insects colonize extreme environments near hot springs, forming the base of food chains in places that appear hostile at first glance. The presence of geothermal heat creates unexpected refuges. Warm ground allows plants to emerge earlier in the year. Snow melts unevenly, opening pathways for animals when surrounding terrain remains frozen. These variations introduce complexity into the ecosystem, increasing resilience rather than fragility. This system operates without stability in the conventional sense. Fires burn, floods reshape valleys. Winters arrive early and depart late, yet life persists through flexibility rather than resistance. Species that endure here do so by responding to change, not by avoiding it. In Wyoming, nature does not settle into equilibrium. It remains dynamic, adjusting constantly to pressure from climate, geology, and time. The ecosystem reflects the same principle seen throughout the landscape. Survival is not achieved through control, but through adaptation within an environment that never fully rests. Wyoming's mountains appear ancient and immovable, yet many of them are geologically young. The ranges that dominate the western part of the state continue to rise, shaped by tectonic forces that have not finished their work. These mountains are not relics of the past, they are part of an ongoing process. The Teton Range stands as the most striking example. Unlike many mountain systems, the Tetons rise abruptly from the valley floor without gradual foothills. This sharp elevation change reflects active faulting beneath the range. One side lifts while the other drops, creating dramatic relief over relatively short geological time. Glaciers once carved these peaks, shaping steep faces and deep valleys. Though most glaciers have retreated, their influence remains visible in U-shaped valleys, polished rock, and alpine lakes. Seasonal snow continues to feed rivers and regulate water availability far beyond the mountains themselves. To the south and east, the Wind River Range extends the story. Higher, broader, and more remote, this range contains some of the largest remaining glaciers in the Rocky Mountains. These ice fields store water, releasing it gradually during warmer months. In a dry region, this slow release sustains ecosystems far downstream. Mountain environments impose limits that shape both geology and life. Thin soils restrict vegetation, harsh winters shorten growing seasons. Animals adapt by migrating, hibernating, or developing specialized behaviors. These constraints reduce competition and preserve balance within fragile systems. The elevation also influences weather. Mountains intercept moisture, creating sharp contrasts between windward and leeward sides. Storms intensify as they rise, delivering snow to high elevations while leaving valleys comparatively dry. This redistribution of water defines Wyoming's climate more than latitude alone. Despite their rugged appearance, these mountains remain vulnerable to change. Warming temperatures alter snowpack and glacier stability. Shifts in precipitation affect river flow and downstream ecosystems. The system remains sensitive, responding quickly to subtle variations in climate and energy balance. Yet the mountains persist, not because they resist change, but because they accommodate it. Faults continue to move, ice advances and retreats, erosion slowly reshapes slopes. The landscape evolves without reaching a final state. In Wyoming, mountains do not represent permanence. They represent motion extended over time. Rising slowly, eroding steadily, and influencing everything around them, these ranges remind us that even the most imposing features remain part of a larger unfinished system. In some parts of Wyoming, time is not inferred through erosion or movement, but preserved almost intact. Fossil Butte National Monument offers one of the clearest windows into ancient life ever discovered. Here, stone functions not as structure, but as archive. Millions of years ago, this region held a vast subtropical lake. Warm, calm, and chemically stable, it created ideal conditions for preservation. When plants and animals settled to the lakebed, fine sediment sealed them from oxygen and disturbance. Layer by layer, life was recorded with extraordinary precision. The fossils found here reveal an ecosystem frozen in detail. Fish retain outlines of fins and scales. Leaves show veins and edges. Insects appear with wings extended as if paused mid-motion. Even stomach contents are sometimes preserved, allowing scientists to reconstruct entire food webs from a single site. Unlike dramatic fossil beds shaped by catastrophe, fossil Butte represents continuity. The lake persisted long enough for patterns to repeat. Seasonal changes, water chemistry, and biological cycles remained stable across thousands of years. This consistency allowed preservation not through sudden burial, but through sustained balance. These records extend understanding beyond individual species. They reveal climate conditions, atmospheric composition, and ecological relationships. The fossils show how temperature, vegetation, and water chemistry interacted long before modern Wyoming existed. What is preserved is not simply life, but environment. Fossil Butte also highlights how geological processes protect as well as expose. While erosion reveals many features across Wyoming, here it removed overlying layers just enough to uncover the archive without destroying it. Exposure and preservation intersected at a precise point. The site underscores an essential truth about deep time. Landscapes that appear permanent may host conditions that last only briefly in geological terms. A lake can exist for thousands of years, then vanish completely. What remains is not water or shoreline, but memory embedded in stone. These fossils challenge assumptions about change. They show that stability can be as influential as disruption. While much of Wyoming's story involves movement and pressure, Fossil Butte represents stillness preserved long enough to leave a lasting record. In Wyoming, deep time is not abstract. It is visible, tangible, and precise. Fossil Butte demonstrates that the land does more than transform. At rare moments, it remembers, storing fragments of ancient worlds long after the conditions that created them have disappeared. Compared to the immense geological timescales that shaped Wyoming, human presence represents only a thin and recent layer. People arrived long after mountains rose, rivers carved valleys, and ecosystems organized themselves around natural cycles. The land existed fully formed before human influence began to register. Early indigenous communities learned to live within the limits set by climate, terrain, and seasonal change. Movement followed migration routes, water availability, and weather patterns. Knowledge accumulated gradually, shaped by observation rather than control. survival depended on understanding the land rather than attempting to reshape it. Later arrivals introduced a different relationship. European settlers viewed Wyoming as a frontier, a place to be crossed, claimed, and altered. Railroads cut across plains and mountain passes, connecting distant markets. Towns appeared rapidly where resources or transportation allowed, often without long-term stability. Ranching and agriculture introduced more permanent patterns, yet even these required adaptation. Harsh winters, limited water, and unpredictable weather imposed strict boundaries. Success depended on flexibility and restraint rather than expansion. In Wyoming, overreach carried consequences. Modern towns continue this negotiation. Cities like Cody and Cheyenne function as cultural and economic centers, yet remain closely tied to surrounding landscapes. Tourism, conservation, and traditional livelihoods coexist, each shaped by the land's constraints. Growth remains measured, not explosive. This thinness of human presence allows deeper patterns to remain visible. Wildlife migration corridors persist. River systems continue adjusting naturally. Geological features remain exposed rather than buried beneath development. The land's story stays legible. Human activity in Wyoming does not erase what came before. It overlays it briefly. Structures weather, towns rise and fall, trails fade. Meanwhile, tectonic forces continue lifting mountains, water continues cutting canyons, and ecosystems continue reorganizing themselves. This contrast offers perspective. Human history here feels temporary, not because it lacks importance, but because it exists within a much larger framework. Wyoming does not adapt to people. People adapt to Wyoming. Understanding this relationship shifts perception. The land is not empty. It is complete. Human presence becomes one chapter in a longer narrative, shaped by forces that operate beyond ownership, planning, or intention. In Wyoming, humanity leaves traces, but the deeper structure remains dominant. The landscape absorbs change, records it briefly, and continues. This thin layer of human history rests upon systems that will persist long after it fades. Wyoming often feels untouched, but this impression can be misleading. The land is not empty, nor is it waiting to be claimed. It exists independently, shaped by processes that do not respond to human intention or timelines. People move through this space, but they do not define it. Scale plays a central role in this perception. Distances are vast, horizons stretch uninterrupted. Human structures appear small and temporary against the backdrop of plains, mountains, and sky. This imbalance shifts perspective. Control feels limited, presence feels conditional. The landscape dictates terms. Weather arrives without negotiation. Winters isolate regions for months. Drought alters water availability. Fire reshapes forests. These events are not anomalies. They are expected expressions of the system. Wyoming operates on its own schedule. This relationship influences cultural identity. Independence here does not mean separation from nature, but awareness of limits. Self-reliance develops not from dominance, but from preparation. Knowledge of terrain, climate, and seasonal change becomes essential rather than optional. The land also shapes silence. Without constant noise or movement, absence becomes noticeable. Stillness reveals subtle change. Wind patterns shift. Light moves across slopes. Wildlife crosses open ground unobserved. The environment communicates quietly, requiring attention rather than intrusion. Ownership becomes an abstract concept in such a setting. Boundaries exist on maps, but the land itself remains continuous. Rivers cross property lines. Migration ignores fences. Geological systems extend far beyond human divisions. Wyoming resists segmentation. This resistance does not reject human presence. It places it in context. Activities that align with the land endure longer. Those that conflict fade quickly. The environment acts as a filter, preserving what fits and eroding what does not. In this way, Wyoming becomes instructive. It demonstrates how landscapes function when they retain authority. Human systems operate best when they recognize this hierarchy, adjusting behavior rather than attempting to override it. The land does not belong to those who pass through it. It remains shaped by forces older than settlement and stronger than planning. Wyoming exists as it always has, accepting presence without yielding control. Understanding this dynamic changes how the region is experienced. What appears empty becomes complete. What seems quiet becomes active. The landscape does not ask to be conquered or preserved as an object. It continues, indifferent to ownership, sustained by processes far beyond human scale. Wyoming does not present itself as dramatic or urgent. It does not rely on spectacle to define its significance. Instead, it reveals meaning through scale. Space stretches uninterrupted. Processes unfold slowly. Change occurs without announcement. This restraint defines the region more than any single landmark. Throughout the landscape, the same principle repeats. Beneath calm surfaces operate immense forces. Mountains rise gradually. Rivers carve patiently. Heat circulates deep below ground. Life adapts continuously. Nothing here exists in isolation. Each element responds to others across time. The land demonstrates how power can exist without constant disruption. Yellowstone's geothermal system releases energy steadily. Rivers expose history without erasing structure. Ecosystems reorganize without collapsing. These patterns reveal resilience built on process, not resistance. Human presence fits into this framework as a temporary layer. Settlements adapt or fade. Infrastructure follows terrain. Activity aligns with seasons and limits. What endures is not expansion, but accommodation. Wyoming offers no illusion that control is permanent or complete. This perspective reshapes how the landscape is understood. Instead of viewing nature as background or resource, it becomes the primary system within which all others operate. Human decisions gain context when measured against forces that operate over thousands or millions of years. Wyoming also reframes time itself. Events that feel significant on a human scale become brief when set against geological processes. Mountains rise and erode, lakes appear and vanish, ecosystems shift. The land remembers these changes long after human records fade. In this way, Wyoming functions as more than a place. It becomes a reference. A reminder that quiet does not mean inactive, and emptiness does not mean absence. The most influential forces often operate slowly, beyond immediate perception. The land continues regardless of attention. Processes persist beneath open skies and distant horizons. Wyoming does not ask to be defined or claimed. It simply exists, shaped by motion, time, and interaction. This enduring motion places human experience in proportion, offering a rare opportunity to observe the planet as it functions naturally, without haste, spectacle, or the need for immediate resolution. To encounter Wyoming is to encounter scale itself, a place where the Earth's processes remain visible, uninterrupted, and ongoing. Not finished, not settled, but continuously unfolding, offering perspective to those willing to look beyond the surface and measure their presence against time.